Because at the end of the day, America is going to want a president who is a decent human being, who doesn't shit on other people, who has some interest in the American people, some interest in something beyond himself. I think at the end of the day, people are going to reject this bigoted, divisive figure.
I'm just giving you the answer to the question you're asking all night long. Why do they vote for Donald Trump? It's not always because they like him. No. It's because stuff like that is kookier to them.
Bill Maher just obliterated Adam Schiff on his show, calling out his endless anti-Trump crusade with zero results to show for it. The roast was so brutal. Schiff might never show his face on Real Time again. Maher dragged him for the drama, the empty promises, and the performative outrage, and fans are eating it up. Like this kind of political fire, hit subscribe and stay locked in.
I think it's true justice. The only thing he cares about is himself and money, and going after the money is a way to bring about some real justice.
Adam Schiff kicked things off with his usual anti-Trump tirade, labeling the former president a self-obsessed narcissist unfit for office. He didn't hold back, calling Trump a danger to democracy and warning that his return would be catastrophic for the country. It was vintage Schiff, dramatic, bold, and packed with rhetoric, but noticeably thin on actual proof. Then came the moment that really lit the fire. Schiff dropped a line so reckless, it's bound to come back and bite him.
I don't share your pessimism about this or your pessimism about the general election. The reason why Joe Biden is going to beat Donald Trump is because at the end of the day, America is going to want a president who is a decent human being, who doesn't shit on other people, who has some interest in the American people, some interest in something beyond himself. I think at the end of the day, people are going to reject this bigoted, divisive figure.
Schiff kept the heat on Trump, throwing every insult in the book in a desperate attempt to tear him down. But the real kicker, the moment that's haunting him now, was his bold claim that Joe Biden would win easily. Fast forward, and Donald Trump is back in the White House. Yikes. That prediction aged like spoiled milk, and Schiff's left looking like a punchline, scrambling for damage control. It's political karma in full swing, and honestly, it's kind of satisfying to watch. Even Bill Maher looked like he was losing patience, but it was Stephen A. Smith who finally snapped, calling out the nonsense for what it was.
And I'm just getting tired of seeing so much stuff targeted in his direction, but somehow, some way, he still survives. I mean, we're talking about a situation where he's still going to be the GOP nominee. He's still going to be running for president. You're President Biden. That's the individual that you're going to have to beat. 4 indictments, 91 counts. They ain't even bringing up the bankruptcies, ain't even bringing up this particular issue with this civil case, and somehow, some way, he puts cats to shame because he clearly has more than 9 lives. I mean, come on.
Before Bill Maher even jumped in, Stephen A. Smith came out swinging, hard. He torched Adam Schiff and the entire anti-Trump brigade for their years-long obsession with taking Trump down. From media hit jobs to endless investigations and over-the-top Hitler comparisons, they've tried every tactic in the book. And yet, Trump's still standing, not just surviving, but thriving. Every time they think they finally buried him, he comes back louder, bolder, and more unstoppable than before. He's the political enigma they can't decode, and it's clearly driving them mad. Fed up with the non-stop Trump bashing, Maher finally stepped in, and what followed wasn't just a clapback, it was a full-on demolition.
The Atlantic put out an article last year, and it was called "Separating Sports by Sex Doesn't Make Sense." Right. And talked about how we separate sports like the WNBA and the just because it's just socialization. This is insane.
I agree.
Okay. That's why people vote for Trump. Mm-hmm. Because there's stuff like that on the left that people just go, I know Trump's horrible, but separating by sports by sex makes perfect sense. Mm-hmm. And if you think it doesn't, you can't leave the country.
Maher didn't waste a second. He looked Schiff dead in the eye and laid it out. This is why people keep voting for Trump. No fluff, no filters. He slammed the Democrats for pushing hollow policies, clinging to fringe ideologies, and losing touch with real-world Americans. One example that hit hard? The party's insistence on ignoring biological differences in sports, forcing men and women into the same categories in the name of inclusivity. To millions, it wasn't progressive. It was flat-out ridiculous. But instead of hearing the backlash, Democrats labeled it bigotry and kept doubling down. Maher made it crystal clear. This kind of political tunnel vision isn't changing minds. It's pushing voters right into Trump's arms. Because when faced with delusion versus someone who sounds even remotely grounded, people will pick the one that talks like they live on planet Earth. Every single time.
Well, Senator Schiff, given the ongoing political tensions and Trump's actions toward his critics, do you think President Biden's preemptive pardons turned out to be more important than initially expected? Let's first tell people what that means, preemptive pardons. That was pretty unprecedented, right? Before he left office, Joe Biden pardoned you and a number of people who he thought Trump would go after.
No, I take the opposite view. I don't think he should have given the pardons at all.
Really?
No, I don't think he should have, and I was vocal about that at the time.
Can you refuse a pardon?
That's less clear because in the case of the January 6th committee, he pardoned essentially the whole committee.
Wait a minute. Did Adam Schiff just throw Biden under the bus on national TV? Because it seriously sounded like it. Schiff, who was neck deep in the January committee circus, conveniently got swept up in a wave of pardons, issued quietly by Biden himself. But here's the twist. If everything that committee did was so righteous and legit, why were pardons even necessary? Now Schiff's out here acting like the pardon was overkill, low-key hinting that Biden may have overstepped. He didn't say it outright, but the subtext, screaming. It's a subtle betrayal, distancing himself from the political blowback while pretending his hands are clean. Classic DC sleight of hand. Accept the lifeline, then disown it when things get uncomfortable. And Bill Maher wasn't having it. He dragged Schiff for the two-faced move and went after the mainstream media for playing defense instead of reporting facts. The whole thing? A masterclass in political theater cracking at the seams.
And so the FBI came in and arrested the judge. No, I haven't heard that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think I've ever read arrested a judge. So is this significant?
Well, I think
I'm not going to comment on something I don't know more about than what you've just told me.
You read about it too.
Yeah, I mean, I read about it, but I don't know.
So you don't trust anything either, and you work for the New York Times.
Well,
Yep. Even Brett Stevens, a columnist at the New York Times, is openly questioning the credibility of his own paper. Think about that. When the people inside the newsroom don't trust what's being printed, you know the rot runs deep. And this is exactly why millions of Americans, including Trump, have ditched the legacy media and turned to independent outlets. The sad truth? The institutions that were once champions of truth have become echo chambers for partisan spin. It's not journalism anymore. It's agenda-driven theater. What used to be about holding power accountable has been hijacked to protect it. And every time another insider cracks, it just proves the point. If you want real answers, don't look to the gatekeepers. You have to go around them to find what's actually real.
Catholic schools are popular now, even with people who aren't Catholic, because it's the last place you can send your kid to get an old school education. And they just tell the kids, forget about the Jesus stuff. Just, to them, that's okay indoctrination, as opposed to some of the other indoctrination that goes on. And also, the Catholics don't put up with bullshit. They take your phone. You have to learn your P's and Q's and your grammar and all this kind of stuff. And that's what I just don't understand, that parents don't have the whip hand anymore. Not that you should actually use a whip. And I don't have kids, so I don't know that firsthand, but every movie and TV show that has a teenager in it cannot be mischaracterizing this. And the kids they don't listen to their parents, they turn their back on them, they walk out of the room, things that would just get me shut down when I was a kid.
We all remember the exact moment things started to spiral, when the left fully leaned into woke culture and abandoned basic morality and common sense. That's when the cultural decay kicked into high gear. Suddenly, kids were treated like fully formed adults, while parents, especially fathers, were turned into punchlines. It started with sitcoms, the clueless dad, the eye-rolling mom, and the all-knowing kid running the show. At first, it was just comedy. Then it became a blueprint. Entertainment slowly morphed into ideology, and with it came a wave of entitled, authority-rejecting kids who think consequences are a myth. Discipline, outdated, boundaries, oppressive, and the family unit, mocked and dismantled. It's no wonder things feel unmoored now. And if you want proof, just look at what one of their own said leading into the election. They're starting to admit it because the cracks are no longer possible to hide.
I respect the fact that you don't share my pessimism. I truly do. I understand where you're coming from. But I think that's part of the problem. I think the Democratic Party should share my pessimism. I think they should be on high alert. I think they need to treat him with the seriousness that it deserves, because you having a lot of faith in the American people. The man did get over 74 million votes. You've got people that are looking at Joe Biden. I'm not going to call him a cognitive mess or anything like that. That's very disrespectful. I would never speak about our president that way. But when you're 82 years of age, it's not offensive to say you're no longer a spring chicken and you don't seem to have.
Schiff and his crew spent years trying to convince us Biden was sharp enough to run the country. But the signs were always there, ignored, dismissed, or flat out denied. By the time the truth hit, it was too late. And their backup plan? Kamala Harris. Yeah, that didn't go well either. Her approval tanked, her speeches flopped, and instead of saving the party, she became another political punchline. The Democrats who once claimed to be the strategic elite are now cleaning up a mess they created themselves. From pushing fringe ideologies to backing a clearly struggling president, they've driven away the very voters they need. Maher and Stephen A. aren't outliers. They're voices in a growing chorus of Americans who are done being lied to. Trump's comeback isn't just about Trump. It's about people rejecting a broken system. The left tried to control the narrative, but reality hit back, hard. And that's a wrap on today's video. If you're into the truth, not the spin, hit like and subscribe. See you next time.